We'll go ahead and get this show on the road. I'm trying to answer questions and I'm typing, and I'm like, I had to reach around the microphone to type. It's much easier if I could just talk with you one on one, which is what I like to do. So here we are. It is a Sunday in February. There's some sort of game of some sort, some competition later on today. But we got all the usual suspects in the room: Dave Beddoes, Padre, Johnny Knoxville, and CW. Dave Beddoes. Did I already say that one? William Page, Mustang MG05. Lots of snow in the Bay City area. More coming on Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah, we only got about 2 inches down here. 2 inches, which is enough for me to push a shovel around, but not enough to break out the 3-stage snowblower. I look forward to those days. DePaul 31's in the house, good friend of mine, Prodigal Stranger, who mentions about the YouTube dropping those commercials into live streams while they're live, which somehow seems odd. But I mentioned that the creator of the live stream has the ability to control that. And so you'll notice that I do not have ads on this live stream if you're watching it live. The ads only appear later if you're watching it in reruns, which, that's the price you pay, my friend. And so Johnny Knoxville is wondering if anything unexpected is going to happen during the Super Bowl. Don't forget, it wasn't that long ago when they lost power for like half an hour during a Super Bowl. It's like, oops. Somebody go check the circuit breakers. I think we lost. I think we tripped a fuse. So, and Doug Jones had to go out and clear a path for the dog to walk because that is a problem for short-legged dogs when the snow gets too deep. I remember that one, going out and shoveling an area in the front yard for my dogs to use when the snow got too deep. So Idris Taylor is hoping that the groundhog will show up. Not here for you to see him. He'd have to be inside the house. The groundhog is inside the house. I don't think we could do that. Jewel Rod, if you do a 7-hour live stream, you could put a halftime show together with Aussie Pink Floyd. Aussie Pink Floyd's back on the road. I believe they're in Europe right now, maybe Germany or something. But yeah, they're back on the road. They took some time off for the holidays, and they're right back out there again. So that's going to happen. Jesse, I did send a quick note to Heather to see if she can drop in or not. I haven't heard back from her, but I'll let you know if I do, or she might drop in. You never know. Bob Blah Blah says Taylor Kelch. It's a nice ring to it. Drewski, The Last Waltz was on AXS TV last night. I watched it. I love that. I actually saw that at the theater when it came out at the Berkeley for $1. When I was a younger man, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. And of course, every last member of that band, the band, is gone. So if you want to see a really, really good concert video, The Last Waltz is right up there. I also think Stop Making Sense is a great concert video movie, of a whole concert. But The Last Waltz is right up there too. So Andy, New York 29 says, hey, keep it down. I'm in the library now. I love libraries. My mother was a librarian, among other things. Kelium. Hi, Steve. Hi, Kelium. Art S. from Icy, New Jersey. Douglas Gaxiola. Hola. Vinny Sluga. Hey, Steve. Good to see you, my friend. Johnny Knoxville might be making a stop back home in Milwaukee in 2 weeks after the big BMX show in Indiana. Shoot me a note if you're passing through Michigan. Well, we'll hang, as they say. Randall Munson, good day, everyone. The Prodigal Stranger says you're watching Lehto's Live direct from the Satellite of Love. Your host, Steve Lehto. I think the Satellite of Love, isn't that Mystery Science Theater 3000? MST. I love that show, too. Rocks 1989, checking in, morning. Okay, it's afternoon where I am, but that's okay. We understand these time zones are very confusing. And I mean, who understands them? Officer Tater Hater, my first live with Lehto is lost. See, that's cool. I like when people drop in who've never been here before. This is very different than what I do when I'm sitting right there. It's only a difference of about 3 feet, but it's a very, very different thing. We got no topics. We just talk about whatever pops up, whatever pops into our pill-crazed heads. Eileen Luck. Hello, Steve from Whitby, Ontario. Snowing here, so I'm baking bread. Knock, knock, 1975. Here we go. Who's there? Rebecca Long from Auburn, Indiana, home of the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Museum, I believe. Chad Crum, Steve's up to mischief again. The Wes, wow, finally catching live. Glad to be here. We're glad you're here too. Scott Rogers says nothing here in Muskegon. No snow? Muskegon, of course, is over here for those of you who follow along on your hand. And they're near the shore of Lake Michigan, obviously. So you'd think there'd be a lot of that lake effect snow. So the Swarm says it's a rarity to catch live when it begins. Happy to have made it. Well, that's because I often start early. We had 40 people in the room when it started. We're at 272 right now. Landon says the most boring football game of all time. So be gardening all day instead. What part of the world are you in where you're gardening this time of the year? Vinny Sluga, thanks for the books. And by the way, I should tell you that I do have books, and I've been spending the last week signing books and mailing them out. And I put a video up on my main channel that said, hey, I got these books. If you want one, send me an email. And I took it down about 2 hours later because I got several hundred requests for it. And so I took the video down. So a lot of people never saw it in the first place. But the point is, I still have more books. So I'll tell you in a few minutes how you can get one if you still want to get one. If you didn't hear about this at the time, there you go. Luna Henkel says, Steve, it took me multiple years to realize the voice at the end of your videos is computer generated. What, you thought that was a person? Well, you do understand that the computer generated voice at the end of the video is the same as the one at the beginning of the video, right? I hope you caught that. Randall Munson had a wooden whistle, but it wouldn't whistle. Taco Cat, what's a third stage on the snowblower? I believe the snowblower is called a three-stager because it's got three different sets of rotors. So it's got these big augers that gather the snow, and they push the snow towards the middle, where there's another auger that pulls it in, and then in the chute is a third auger that launches it. So the snow goes flying, which makes it a lot of fun. Carl's Corner, hello, Steve. Kelly Hadley checking from Memphis, Tennessee. I love Memphis. Absolutely love it. I've only been there a few times, but I love it. Ghosted Shadow, good afternoon, sir, from Chicago. Killiam, Tucson, Arizona. And Vet City Audit News, hello from Vet City. So Scott Rogers asks, is there a football game today? Lawrence Nizer, well, if your Sunday is so uneventful, maybe you should go to church. Well, is church eventful, though? I thought church was just mellow. David Zaranansky says, we got ice. The snowblower is useless against it, especially when it is covered with ice. Oh, yeah, no, that's the sad thing about it. It's the same is true as shoveling snow. If it's not just the right texture, it doesn't work. But, man, if you get like 4 or 5 inches of freshly fallen snow and it's still powdery, oh my, the snowblower just chews through it and launches it. But if it's a little soggy or wet or crunchy, yeah, it gets messy. So there you go. Gregory Butcher, or Bucher maybe, Greg from Gettysburg is checking in. And Michael Johnson, my friend from Westland, Michigan, he's off to work on a Sunday. Hey, there's Gilbert checking in. I'm old. Mark Knappel says, my church is always eventful. Skeeter, why do you livecast from another position instead of in front of your desk? It's complicated. It has to do with me running cables, and I'm lazy. And the first time I did it from here, and I thought, well, something, now the cat's out of the bag, that my set is fake, that I can go ahead and, So in case you actually wanted a copy of American Murder Houses, it's the exact same book as the other one, but my publisher put it out with a special value price. And after they sold them for about a year, they said, we're going to take it out of print. Do you want the leftovers? I said, sure. So I bought them, and now I've got a pile of them. So if you want one, they're $15. Send me a note at this email address. Make sure I get it right, because I don't want people sending stuff to the wrong place. steve@lehtoslaw.com and put the word book in the subject line. Nothing else, just book. In fact, don't even put the quotes, just book. And I'll send you an invoice via Square, which is secure, like PayPal, and for $15. And the book has a cover price of $12, but I'm paying for shipping and a padded mailer. And by the way, that's why I'm still doing this. I ran out of envelopes and I had to order more, and it took a couple days to get here, even though I was using Amazon Prime. So there you go. But Terry Towner, Kobo Car Show, are you doing anything special for this year? Are you referring to the Autorama? Because the North American International Auto Show, I believe, is ended. It just happened. But the Autorama comes up, I believe, hang on. It comes up on March 1st, right around that weekend. And so I'll go there. I always go there and hang out. I meet people there all the time, but I don't bring a car. I'd have to spend too much time down there. It's one of those things I can spend one day there, and I hang out with my good friends like Mark Lieberman, and I've got a bunch of friends who hang out down there. Adam Lukachel, and just look at the cool cars. It's a lot of cool cars. I am McNathan says, hello, everyone from Sun City Center, Florida. Vinny Sluga, my dad made a donation to the Institute of Justice. That's good. Steve DeMoe says, this is too awesome. I just finished watching your episode with Jay Leno covering the Turbine Car. Definitely a big fan. Yeah, I was on Jay Leno's garage once about 10 years ago, but I also am in the documentary with Jay that Haggerty put together. So look up Haggerty Turbine Car documentary. You'll find this beautiful documentary that I'm in along with a bunch of other people, including Jay Leno, and talks all about the history of that program. So there you go. JW, since your video on flock cameras 3 months ago, I've created Facebook pages advocating for LEOs to get a warrant to check those databases and documenting each camera's location. Okay, let's see what happens. Biggest problem you've got is that the video, the cameras are out in public, and they're going to say, well, they're just monitoring the public. So do they need a warrant for that? But I can see the argument. Southern Torrent, hey there, Steve. Mark Miller, I was going to buy the book for my sister-in-law, but she said I should save my money as I'm currently out of work. I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. Chris Cadman, hello. Mrs. Teresa, 1999, earlier said, I can't imagine that Steve is lazy. I've got everyone fooled. Last weekend in July, Geneva, New York cruising night. I've got that marked on my calendar. I just don't know if I can make it or not, but I'd love to bring a car and come on over there and hang out. So we'll see. Rocks 1989 says, just remember to always shoot the snow straight into the wind that's coming towards you, as it gives you that Star Wars effect of jumping to light speed. Oh, that's the funniest thing. And what happens is you're throwing the snow in a direction, all of a sudden the wind changes and you get a face full of it. It's so annoying because the second you take your hands off the controls, things stop happening. And so you got to like start cranking stuff and change the angle. And then if you turn around, you got to crank it back. It's still fun. But it does get that, you get a big old face full of snow. Randall Munson points out you could consider the book free. Just add $15 postage and handling. I send them out media mail, which is about $4 and change. I think $4.65 maybe. And the cool thing about media mail is, number one, it'll get there. Number two, it's tracked. I have tracking information for all the books I've shipped, and I will have it. So in the entire history of me doing this, and I've sent several thousand books out now doing this, I've only had one or two that didn't supposedly get there, but the tracking showed they did. And when I spoke to the people who said they hadn't gotten it, they admitted to me that, well, I share this mailbox with other people or that kind of thing. So they're very good. The success rate is very, very good. So there you go. It's not Mio7 says, hey, I'm almost on time. Jones man, oh wait, do people still try to argue with you that it's pronounced turbine car? Oh yeah, of course. And it's one of the funniest things. the people who worked on them call them turbine cars. I even did a video where I pointed out that Chrysler called them turbine cars. And you can call it a turbine car if you want, but you don't correct people who are saying it another acceptable way. And it's funny because I've had people actually go, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. It's pronounced turbine. I wrote a book about him. I interviewed 50 people who worked on him. No one called it a turbine car. No one did. And Alan Mack apparently does the joke that everybody else thinks of. So Skeeter, media mail takes about 6 months here. I had some people get them the next day, literally the next day. So it does depend. I did send one media mail to somebody who lived near me. He goes, "Hey, Steve, just to let you know, the book is down in Texas." I said, "Don't worry, it'll come back. It'll come back." And it did. It's like a boomerang. My boomerang didn't come back. Believe in yourself. Hi, Steve from Napanee, Mark Miller and crew. Gilbert. New to him, not a new model, older. Okay, I missed the question. I apologize. And I've told you before, I actually I start watching these videos. I'll watch them later on in the week just to see if I did anything right or wrong or whatever. And I'll realize that I missed all kinds of stuff while I was talking about something. And I apologize. Well, Mark Miller says, and we should call it gasoline. You shall say it's a gasoline engine. I-N-E, ein, right? Engine. So Mark Keppel, that's like Porsche. The strange part is that Porsche is a person's name. They actually have the right to say it's not Porsche or Porsche. It's Porsche. Cyberdoc, how do you pronounce carbine? Why would that matter? Alan Bishop thought you might take your Viper to that show. To the Autorama or the one in Geneva, New York? Doug Jones is your U.S. accent. It's not an accent. I mean, I've met people who go, "Oh, Steve, it's a turbine," who have an accent, but it's not. It's I'm choosing to pronounce it that way. It's a pronunciation thing. Gilbert, your Jeep. Oh yeah. I've not gotten my Jeep yet. Still working on it. I will talk about it when appropriate, but as of right now, it is still in the possession of the guy who's got it. And we're working out the logistics of getting it up here. I'm not going to drive down and bring it up. It's a little bit too far of a drive to drive a vehicle that I'm not that familiar with. So I'll get it up here, play around with it, and then we'll then do a video and so on. Vinny Sluga, how's Jay doing after his fall down the hill? He's fine, although he looked pretty bad at first. Strangely, he looked, I think, worse there than he may have looked earlier, although we didn't see him right away after he burned himself. But yeah, he's had a little bit of bad luck physically, but he's fine. I've spoken to him since then, and he's fine. He just thinks it's funny. He's a comedian, of course he thinks it's funny, right? Oh boy. Jones man, oh wait, I'll drive it up with you. Well, it's not having more people in the vehicle. I'm worried more about mechanical issues. If David Tracy, the guy who runs the Autopian, was available and he was going to drive with me, I'd say sure, because he's the kind of guy who go, "Oh, all we did was break our camshaft. I can fix it at the side of the road using." He's like a MacGyver with Jeeps, you know. In fact, I seem to recall that he may have replaced a camshaft on a Jeep he was driving cross country. And he did it in the parking lot of a store. Oh boy. Yeah, it jumped on me again. Jerry Buston, can you answer a question? Who edited your book for publishing? The publisher did. I've written one HF antenna engineering book and 2 fiction novels. Okay, you don't need to say fiction novels. Novels, by definition, are fiction. But my books were edited by the publishers. So all of my books, so this book here was published by Berkeley Books. See a little B there, Berkeley Books. And I had an editor there who, and most big publishers have several stages of editing. And they usually have an editor who will read it the first time through and look for big picture stuff. We don't think you explained this quite enough. You got to explain this a little more over here. And, to be consistent, you need to say this and this and this and this, that kind of thing. And then later on, they have line editors who will literally go through it line by line, word by word, uh, every jot and tittle, as they say. And what's funny is you can think you're good at editing. There are people out there who'll find stuff that'll blow your mind. And it's not always stuff that's wrong. It's just that, oh no, this is actually better this way. And you're like, oh, okay. And it turns out they're right. So James Scott, what are your thoughts about self-publishing? It depends on your definition of it. Nowadays, anybody who wants to can upload something to Amazon, and Amazon will publish it, and they'll even list it for sale and so on. But I've seen a lot of stuff done that way. Wait, my microphone's not straight. Hang on. I think that's better. And I've seen a lot of stuff that was self-published that was not good. But then again, I found stuff that was published by traditional publishers that had mistakes in it and stuff. So it's hard to say. But I read a ton of stuff. I read so much. Right now, I'm reading a really good book right now. I forgot the author's name, but it's called Box Office Poison, and he's talking about the biggest flops out of Hollywood mathematically, and it's hilarious because the guy writes so well that he makes it fun to read about movies that flopped. So, Skeeter says they just used Google to proofread it. Just admit it. I don't think that would work. Lowface, have you had to fight your corner against the editors on anything? No. I've had a couple where an editor was convinced I was wrong on something, and I was convinced I was right. And because it was not an editing issue, it was a factual issue. I said, I believe I win this one because if it goes to press this way, I'm going to get the blame, not you. And they said, okay. And by the way, no one's ever claimed I was wrong on that one fact. It turns out I was right. Oh, boy. Oh, Kilium says AI book creation is even scarier. Oh, yeah. No, if you wanted to, you can go onto one of those Chat GPT things and have it write you an entire book and then just publish it tomorrow. The question is how good is it? So NZ Kiwi NZ is checking in from New Zealand. Mark Miller, I've been journaling for 10 years. Perhaps I could turn it into a book. You could. It'd be a memoir of sorts. But the question is, how interesting would it be? I was at a conference years ago, and I was talking to somebody, and a woman goes, I've got a manuscript right now that I'm looking for a publisher for. And I said, oh, what's the manuscript? She goes, it's my autobiography. And I said, okay, describe it to me. She goes, it's 300,000 words, so I think it'll be in 4 volumes. I tried not to laugh. And I said, oh, and I started thinking to myself, like, what on earth have you actually done that deserves 300,000 words? Like Winston Churchill's life story, maybe, okay? But no, the average person, no, 300,000 words. Typical novel is 75,000 words. So there you go. Oh boy. Get off my lawn says I got my signed Murder House book. Thanks for the quick shipping and personalized signing. Well, thank you for letting me know. What state are you in? I'm curious because I've had people asking, but I was shipping books out on Tuesday. So I just ran out of envelopes halfway through the week. So I've got a few more to go, but not that many. I don't think. So, oh boy. Helium, holy shnikes. Is that shnikes or schnikes? Mrs. Teresa, 1999. Where's blah, blah, blah? He's here. He checked in earlier. I'm sure he's watching. He's probably multitasking. He's probably got the TV on with one eye and this screen on the other eye. And Leo the Nomad, origin of the phrase in open court. That's interesting. I'd never stopped to think about that because there really is not a closed court. There are things that happen back in chambers with the judge, but those aren't considered to be happening in court. I think people tack the phrase "in open court," the first two words there, to indicate that anybody could walk into the court and watch this. It happened in open court. It didn't happen behind closed doors or something. But I don't know. James Scott, I find when I write stuff, I fight with Google's AI suggestions constantly. What program are they fighting with you on? Because I write stuff in Word. I used to write in Word perfect, but somewhere along the line, everybody in the industry changed to Word. And so the only thing Word will do is it'll suggest spelling mistakes. So if you misspell something, it'll indicate that to you on the fly. And I don't mind that. But eventually we'll get around to that. Hey, Duncan Campbell's checking in from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Helium says it's pronounced Schnikes from Tommy Boy. Daniel Kester, how you doing, my friend? Where is the Canadian robot lady? I hope she's feeling better. I sent her a note, and let's see if she responded using the bat phone. Hasn't responded yet. So, Joseph Mama says my first write-in vote was for president for Joe Walsh. Rocky Mountain Way. Actually, Joe Walsh does a song called Rosewood Bitters, written by Michael Stanley. And actually, it's one of the rare songs I like both versions. I like the Michael Stanley band version, and I like the Joe Walsh version, even though Joe Walsh's version is quite different. He changed some of the words, he changed the structure of the song. Rosewood Bitters. Check that song out. DePaul says in open court versus in camera, but in camera, is like I said, is the nickname for things taking place back in chambers. But of course, that's Latin too, so most people don't know what that means. Kevin Becker, nice to watch you live. God bless you and yours. Yeah. Doug Jones says CRL could be shoveling snow. Could be. Yeah, David Peterson says you could also write in Pat Polson for president, because for the longest time he was asking people to do that. That's like a very, very long running joke there. KJ, hello, Steve. Good day to you. Oh, yeah, Melissa says YouTube has an AI assistant for creators and it suggests bizarre replies to comments like, weird that you're watching my videos. I've seen that. I just ignore it. But it is kind of funny because, I mean, even my phone suggests responses to texts. So I get a text from somebody, hey, what are you doing? And my phone will say, you could say you're doing this. What? What? Oh, boy. Mr. M.A. Moore? Checking in from Jackson, Michigan. Jackson, Michigan, which used to be the home to the world's largest single walled prison. I believe it was true. I don't think they use Jackson anymore, though. Jackson Prison, do they? So, Zach, are you going to watch the Super Bowl or the big game? I probably will, but I'm not. To me, it's a cultural event I watch. I'm not going to say I watch it for the commercials because that's stupid. But I'll probably watch it in case something happens. Once in a while, something does happen. Like I said, that one time where they lost power for half an hour. The other time where was it Seattle that had the ball on the 1 yard line and they threw a pass that got intercepted. Which, even though I'm not a big football fan, I argue is possibly the worst call of all time. And the coach said, yeah, we've run that play before and it worked. Yeah. And why are you throwing the ball on the 1 yard line? Huh? In the Super Bowl? Come on. Oh. Melissa, anyone else feel like the halftime shows aren't that great anymore? I'm not sure they were ever all that great to begin with. They've had some pretty bad ones. Don't forget the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction, which, by the way, was not a malfunction. That whole thing was planned. But they did. Some people got in trouble for that, but I don't want to go there. And there have been some really disappointing ones. And usually it's a bunch of people out there lip syncing because they don't have the time to set the stage up properly and running around and dancing and stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It doesn't really do it for me. So, It's not me. 07 says that was Pete Carroll finally delivering a New England Patriots Super Bowl win. That's right, Pete Carroll. Oh, don't get me wrong. I watch Michigan football every year. I'm a huge Michigan football fan, and I watch almost no professional football. But I was watching that game, and they're going to throw a short pass when they're on the 1 yard line. It's everyone knows you hand the ball to whoever's got the best hands and have them dive over and see. Well, we're going to throw the ball, and it gets intercepted. It's like, okay. Harry Seldon, what's your stance on 2-point conversions? I actually like them. I like the idea that football's got a little more variability to it. It's I don't think games should ever end in ties. Remember, they used to allow ties in games, do an overtime. And the same with the 2-point conversion. So there you go. Oh, Mark Miller says, by the way, when they threw on the 1 yard line, they're the best running back in the league that year. Now, what's funny about this discussion is the coach saying we'd run that play before and it always worked. Well, that's one reason that you might not want to run it in the Super Bowl, because you know darn well the other team has spent several weeks, if not more, analyzing what you've been doing that works. And somebody probably said, hey, by the way, don't be surprised if those idiots throw the ball on the 1 yard line. Oh, Bonnie Sisters is from the servicemen and women stationed overseas. A thank you, shout out to you. Yeah, and I agree. And that's the one thing that happens around the holidays when there's football games for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, and the Super Bowl. They often do call out the fact that there are servicemen and women who are around the world serving, and they might be able to get to a TV, but they're far from home. And that is something that we should stop to think about often, because they're doing the work that needs to be done. And so they're away from their families. They're not sitting in a nice warm living room with their loved ones watching the game and screaming at the TV set. Now they might be hanging out with their buddies on the base, but that's a whole different thing. So yeah, I got to absolutely call out to them. Scott Summers, wasn't it the Browns fans that threw beer bottles on the field? Any stadium that's selling beer by the bottle is actually asking for trouble. I seem to recall the Browns fans, though, had some rowdiness to them as well. Dean Stevenson says he was like 152 and we're at 163 right now. So he's a classic here. D Corbett, hello from Cincinnati. Better late than never. Gilbert is indicating some kind of technical difficulties. I have not witnessed anything at my end, but then again, I can't control the universe just yet. James Scott, does anybody else remember the U2 Super Bowl halftime show? I can't remember what teams were playing. I can tell you that the Rolling Stones played. I think it was when they were doing the Super Bowl in Detroit. And I love the Rolling Stones, but live, not quite cutting it. I don't know. Mark Miller says the Eagles pelted Santa Claus with snowballs one year. Prodigal Stranger says, yeah, support the Philadelphia Fire Department, because whether or not the Eagles win or lose, they're going to burn down half the city. It's kind of like, and I know people who go to Michigan State University disagree with me stating this out loud, but there is a tradition on campus in East Lansing after like the NCAA playoffs and they win or they lose, it doesn't matter. They're outside burning couches, and and apparently, if you're in like a housing, not in a dorm, but you're in housing, and you get really really excited, you look around the living room for which furniture can we burn, and they drag a couch outside and light it on fire. And I once did an interview the morning after a big game, and the big game had been in Lansing. And I'd seen in the news that they were burning couches all night long. And the interviewer from Lansing actually asked me a question. And I said, "Well, I'm judging by the smoke signals I'm getting from you guys." He thought it was funny. So, oh boy. Mexican specs as well. It is hard to get rid of an old couch. A burned couch is easier to get rid of. Well, I mean, think about it though. You burn the couch. If it doesn't burn down to the ground into a pile of you know ashes, it's still a big thing. It's got to get thrown into a dump truck, most likely, or garbage truck. So, John Zablak says, "Yeah, burning down the couch by the Talking Heads." Oh boy. Harry Seldon says the halftime concerts only started because of the In Living Color show that was done on Fox opposite the game. Before that, it was often marching bands and so on. Yeah, I remember them talking about that. So, I mean, obviously, it's a big enough stage referring to the audience that they can actually put some more effort into it and set it up. So, Mexican Specs says, yeah, Steve, they should do it right. Oh, Johnny Knoxville says he also burned couches at UC Santa Barbara, the Gauchos. I suspect it's actually a thing. Kalakaku Koten says your vocal doppelganger just posted a video featuring an aerial motorcycle. Have you ever seen one? No, I do not. No, I don't know much about bikes. Sorry. Bob Blah Blah says I went downtown in a red convertible when the Cincinnati Reds won the World Series. That was a huge mistake with the top. Yeah, that would be. And I've mentioned before, I was in Detroit 1984 at Game 5 when they won the World Series. And I told my friends, I said, I know you want to stick around and party, but we got to get home. And we went home and watched the carnage on television. Helium in living color was the best. Watch the Jim Carrey skit where he's imitating Vanilla Ice. That's pretty funny. Dan Boyd says a burning couch will melt the Earl Scheib paint off a 72 Nova in sheets. I actually knew a guy who had a Chevelle when I was in high school. He had a 70, maybe a 68 or 69 Chevelle. He took it to Earl Scheib and got a paint job. It was like $100 back then, and it actually didn't look bad until he got up really close. A genie says a nice Sunday with you, Steve. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Andy New York 21 says set my couch on fire to kill the bugs. Yeah, it's kind of like carpet bombing something to take care of a little problem, right? Unless the bugs are real bad, in which case you should just get them outside. Johnny Knoxville says marijuana legalization has been a total bust. California is the model for failure. The legal pot market is dying. I can tell you right now that in Michigan, every former empty storefront or gas station or party store has been turned into a pot dispensary. And I look at them, they don't look that busy. And I'm like, can they all really make it? I understand that when the markets change, there's going to be some winners and some losers. But right now, it looks to me like they're all losing. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Unit Absolute 77. I've met my doppelgangers. Okay. Did you get along? Zach, in communist Russia, couch burns you. Johnny Knoxville will be working on the model railroad during the Super Bowl. Mexican Specs is not $100, Steve. Maybe $99.95. Actually, that amount changed with inflation. I'm pretty sure at one point it was like $69.95, $79.95. But I only knew the one guy who actually went and said, "I got this done by Earl Scheib." But yeah, Old Point 71 says, but I say, Steve, I hope you burn your couch outside. It gets smoky inside if you don't. Well, the thing is, I'm not sure some of these people burning the couches were paying that much attention. I wouldn't be surprised if they lit it on fire inside and then dragged it out. I mean, oh boy. MH08 says, what's amazing in Michigan is you can buy a half a pound of the devil's lettuce. SKS Hugo says pot isn't legal, it's regulated. But it used to be illegal. Now it's legal. Sean M, what color was the Chevelle? The guy painted it orange. Orange. I'm not sure if it was a proper color or not. So Mexican Spec, a friend of mine managed a production paint shop. It was an interesting business. The question always is how much effort you want to put into the paint job, because I've seen places where they spent like 10 minutes masking stuff off and just start shooting. And my brother for a while used to paint cars, and he got good at it. I mean, he got really good at it. And I remember a couple cars he painted that the paint looked wet. It was so shiny, it looked wet. And I remember he bought a couple Corvettes that were odd colors, and he buy a Corvette that was gold with a black interior and repaint it red, and just boom, sell it instantly. And he had one in particular. I'm imagining it right now, where people would come up and like literally look at it, and they're like trying to figure out why the paint looked so good. And that was my brother had gotten good at it. So the prodigal stranger remembers dime bags. A better thing is, do you remember what a lid is? A lid, Lid, lid. A lid is an unusual measure they used back in the day. Vorpal Bite says painting your car costs as much as buying a junker. Eric in Tennessee said a lid is an ounce. I believe it was actually a fraction. I believe it was like 2/3 of an ounce or something. Although Prodigal Stranger says it's 4 joints. Oh boy. Alphabetized says it was hopefully Hugger orange. I'm familiar with that color. I don't think it was. I'm not saying this guy was a real genius or anything. He was just a guy. He's a friend. He's actually a friend of a friend of mine at the gas station. G Keyman 565 says hello, Steve. On the road, but listening. Roads aren't too bad, mostly wet. I was driving last night around 8 o'clock, and it was bad. I mean, it was the road is covered with snow. They salted some intersections, but Simulant says a lid was 3/4 of an ounce. It was a fraction. I can't remember if it was 2/3, 3/4, something like that. Greatest ever says I'm 33. I've never heard of a lid. Yes, that's why I said it was old school. I'm talking about old school. um, Mrs. Teresa says we'd love to see a picture of your Viper. Well, I've done entire videos on it. Nate Fish says 2/3 of an ounce, but what is that in King's units? See, that's the whole point. Is it's almost like an imperial gallon versus a metric, this or a whatever. So Josie Wales says a lid is a 3-finger high baggie of weed, 3/4 of an ounce, and that may be part of it as well. But I seem to recall it was a reference to a particular lid off of something. I don't know, it was a mayonnaise jar or something that you could flip it over and use that to measure with. Pete Nikolich says it was from a jam jar. A jam jar. Blazer O2 LS says Earl Scheib had some franchises that did very good work. It depended on the options you paid for. And I believe, I seem to recall that they'd say, if you want just the cheapest thing we've got, we'll like throw masking tape or masking stuff over like your Chrome and your Windows, obviously. But if you really want us to do a good job on it and like, really buff it out and like that, it'll cost you a little bit more. So Jay Klein says I'm 54 and we were buying quarter ounces in the late 80s. Pontiac 411, a lid is what's missing in your Tupperware collection. Always. Always. Harry Selden says if the lid was from a jam jar, it gives jam session a whole new meaning. Nate Fish says I think Reagan tried to get on the metric system. I believe it was Carter. I think Jimmy Carter was the one who was pushing for that. It didn't go anyplace. Todd G, are the labels still in the wheel wells of your Viper? Yes, three of them are. One of them was coming off, and I pulled it off and saved it. But yes, they are there. CASE says back when gas was 25 cents a gallon. I remember that. Believe it or not, I remember there used to be a time you drove down Woodward Avenue north of Detroit where there were intersections where there's a gas station on each corner. Literally, each corner had a gas station. They also had service departments and all that, but they would get in these price wars over gas. And I remember when they got down to 25 cents a gallon one time, and I remember actually having an adult tell me, you understand you get 4 gallons for $1. And I'm like, wow. And I was years from driving, but that even to me struck me as being an unusual thing. Cyberdoc says, yeah, it was Jimmy Carter. Remember learning metrics while he was president. Offensively normal, so I'm suddenly craving Doritos. Or how about Taco Bell? Johnny Knoxville, gas was 89 cents a gallon when I was in high school. I remember a time when gas had never been over $1 in Michigan. And driving down the road and seeing them list, they had put a third digit up, because they 59.9, 69.9. Suddenly it's 103, and and for a while they didn't have a correct number to put there, and even the gas pumps had to be overhauled because many gas pumps weren't capable of calculating anything above 99.9 cents a gallon. So that was a problem too. Yeah, Dave Beto says now it's a Starbucks on each corner. John Zablak, Reefer Madness is a cult movie. It's great. Check out the Mystery Science Theater version of Reefer Madness too. That's pretty funny. Lewis Browning, the microphone smells like skunk. I've worked at radio stations in the old days where people smoked in the studios, and the engineers hated it because it caused stuff to get dirty faster. But I remember walking into a radio station where there was a big old wind screen on the microphone, and you lean in to talk, and you get a whiff of cigarette smoke. It's like, ugh. So, yeah, Madam Lestrange, I don't have to smoke weed. I just go to concerts and breathe. I used to joke about that. You go to Pine Knob, which is an outdoor amphitheater in Clarkston, Michigan, and there's seating facing a stage that's shaped like a bowl, and then there's a hill. You can sit on the hill, and the further down you go on a calm day, the more you'd see the soupy. It was like flying into Los Angeles in the 70s. You'd see the smoke hanging over it, and back then, depending on the show, I saw the Allman Brothers there one year, and I used to tell my friends, "Yeah, it smells like Pine Knob in here." Oh my, it was bad. Mark Miller says, as a former smoker, I have to say the smell of cigarettes is now disgusting to me. Yeah, people forget, used to go into restaurants, everybody's smoking, onboard airplanes, everybody's smoking, and they gradually, weeded that out. And now it's gone the other way to where people are smoking. It seems out of place. Harry Seldon, I definitely don't miss people being able to smoke everywhere. Gilbert says that quilters around the world use imperial measurements. Do they really? Kung Fu Grip says the new 7-Eleven app gives you $20 off of a $30 purchase today. Was anybody planning on buying $30 worth of stuff at a 7-Eleven today? I mean, seriously, I bet my entire life I've never spent $30 at a 7-Eleven. But okay. Vorpal Bite, bring back service station attendants. Was like 48 states that don't have them, but Oregon and New Jersey do. So John Zablak says we smoked WOUR in the 70s. Music madness. Now, I remember interning at WABX 99.5 in Detroit when they were the rock and roll station. And they were in Oak Park at the time. And in the studio, there's ashtrays and my friend Alan Stagg, who's no longer with us, just in there just smoking like a chimney. But the guy had a great voice. He's a great guy. But, you'd walk in the studio and it was like walking into a smoke chamber. Matthias F. Lou, washing the curtains was fun when everyone was smoking. Oh, boy. Brian Sadwin, I remember 75 cents for gas and cigarettes are 45 cents a pack. And I also remember when cigarettes were 25 cents a pack out of a machine at a gas station, and kids would be walking to school, walk into the gas station, buy some cigarettes, and walk out. And the gas station people kind of pretend they didn't see that happening and nobody really cared. Prodigal Stranger says just New Jersey because in Oregon, you can pump your own now. Okay, cool. Chuck Puck says 7-Eleven is incredibly expensive, $3.99 for a Snapple. Yeah, but still you have to buy like what, 7 of them to get in your $30 with tax? Civic Enthusiast says it's crazy. I just quit smoking after 26 years, but now I'm vaping. I assume that's a step in the right direction, though, right? I hope. I hope. But oh, Matthias says restoring paintings when everyone smoked showed some real amazing results. I've seen that before, where they said that they've been restoring an old painting of an old master. That's all dark and shadowy. It turns out it was actually bright and vibrant before 300 years of cigarette smoke. Johnny Knox from my local Mexican restaurant transformed a cigarette machine into an art dispenser. What kind of art does it dispense? Oh, it jumped on me again. Zach says, do you remember Hot and Now? There was one store left, and now they're opening 2 more locations. Vaguely, I don't think I've ever eaten at one, though. I've seen them by the side of the road, right? They're in Michigan. I've seen some stories about them. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess so. Chris Cadman, my doctor, used to smoke in his office. Don't forget that doctors used to actually do cigarette ads. Well, if you're going to smoke, I suggest Chesterton's, and I'm a doctor. Okay, you're a stupid doctor who's taking money. Oh, Mark Miller, I can remember 17-cent gasoline when filling up with my dad. Dan Boyd, I never had much trouble buying beer and liquor as a kid, but never really bought cigarettes. Yeah, for some odd reason, culturally, it was more acceptable for kids to smoke. I remember kids smoking out in front of the junior high school, because this is before middle schools. Junior high school, so we're talking about like 7th, 8th, 9th graders, just standing outside smoking. They toss a cigarette and go inside the class. It's like in front of the junior high. And then the high school had a smoking lounge or smoking courtyard. And theoretically, the 18-year-olds were allowed to legally smoke, but they didn't check ID. So Vorpal Bites is have it your way was not Hot and Now's motto. No, it's Burger King. Have it your way at Burger King. Tigerman 99515. This is my friend in 5th grade bought cigarettes in a Playboy using a note from his mom. I have more questions about his mom wanting to buy a Playboy than I do about the cigarettes. But Jay Klein, my high school, had a smoking section. Oh, boy. Robert Dillon says the distinction between drinking and smoking is a religious thing versus a health thing, and smoking is health, whereas drinking is religious. That very well could be it. That very well could be it. But it's hard to say always whether there's more than one reason for something. 4B Rigorous. I ask myself now, Steve, how many of those signed books did you sell? Looking forward to receiving mine. I didn't do a final count, but I'm approaching 300 on this batch, 300. So I've got a few piles over here that I'm going to be working on this afternoon. And I've made 4 trips to the post office, 4 boxes each time. And I think I'll have them all up by Monday, maybe Tuesday. We'll see. We'll see. Sig226 says he bought it for the articles. Well, I'm talking about the mom. But Stormtrooper 88 off to protest to try and save democracy. Good luck with that, my friend. Oh. Kellicaka Coton says, I remember when a carton of cigarettes went above $5 a carton, and I thought it was an outrage, so I quit smoking. Can you imagine? Because what are they now? I actually knew somebody whose mother was a smoker, and anytime she left the country, because apparently she left the country a bit on business, her mom would say, "Can you bring me back some of them duty-free cigarettes?" Apparently, it's cheaper that way. I don't know enough about it. All I know is that my friend was picking up cartons of cigarettes. So Robert Dillon says, just to confirm, you're a triple XL, no double XL. Tigerman 99515 says the Playboy was for the dad, but the mom signed the note. Okay, okay, it would make sense. You wouldn't have to have the note countersigned. Oh. Feral Kitty says my photography teacher caught us smoking in the bathroom, but then caught us after she did. She told us we might get her in trouble, so she'd write us a pass when we go smoke on the stairs by the shop class. Okay. Easy one. Can I rent your Viper for a day? No, but you can rent. You can find places that rent out cars. You can find Porsches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff like that to rent out. Um, but yeah, no. But thank you for asking. Chuck Whitehead, Marlboro used to have rewards for buying them, like jackets and more. Yeah, I remember that. Some guys walking around in his Marlboro windbreaker. And you're like, yeah, that's cool. Chuck Pucks is smuggling cigarettes from Indiana as big business in Chicago. Yeah, that's true. There are some states where they have very, very low taxes, and other states have high taxes. And so there's people who go, hey, there's a cost differential here I can take advantage of in an economic fashion. So Dark Angel says I did the math once and determined the taxes on cigarettes were around 266%. You have to understand how much money the tobacco industry made back in the heyday. It was just a cash machine. And then, of course, that's changed a little bit more recently. But Matthias had a colleague who was so addicted to smoking that he couldn't go on vacation anymore when they banned smoking in airplanes. Nate Fish, did you ever take an airline flight back when smoking was permitted? Yes, yes. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is not pleasant. And keep in mind that the air on those planes can be both recirculated and it can also be refreshened, but that didn't seem to be working there. DePaul 31, smoking in the boys' room, Brownsville Station. Don't forget that song. Jay Klein, I still have a pair of Marlboro snow pants. Jason Brindamar had a Marlboro CD player. Oh boy. And this is Uneventful Sundays are best. John Zablak says I like smoking fish. Um, I'm not a big fan of smoked fish. There's a bunch of smoked fish places in the Upper Peninsula. I'm not quite sure why, other than their proximity to places where people catch big fish. I just don't really care for them. But it's one of those things where it might just be that I've just never tried the good stuff. I don't know. Paul Harris, yeah, Marlboro windbreaker, and you're dragging an oxygen tank behind you. Oh, David Peterson, don't forget about the smoke shops on the reservations where you can avoid the cigarette taxes. There's a gas station just north of Baraga, south of Chassel, in the Upper Peninsula, in the Keweenaw Peninsula. And there is a gas station on a reservation, and they don't charge all of the taxes. And it's the lowest gas prices you will see anywhere, at least in the Midwest. So if you're driving through the area, make a note. Oh, I can save a bunch of money by going there and getting a fill up. So, oh, easy one says, yeah, smoked fish that tastes like a campfire. Prodigal Stranger says I tried smoking fish once, but it was too hard to light. You're probably smoking the wrong end, if you know what I mean. Nate Fish, my friend, had a grandmother who had to get a nicotine IV when she had surgery because the doctor said the withdrawals would be a medical liability. I mean, I remember seeing people who had no cigarettes and were freaking out about it, But Feral Kitty, my dad worked at a mini mart and collected the points. My brother still wears his Marlboro rain jacket. He's not a smoker, but dad had passed and he's sentimental. Well, there's the other thing, there was a time when like NASCAR, the Winston Cup, and so Winston Cup branded stuff was often NASCAR related. So there can often be another tie in there. So Cyberdoc says you got to cut off the tail and inhale through the lips. Yes, fish have lips. Of course they do. Oh, Johnny Knoxville says smoking bans on private property are unconstitutional. But the problem you've got with the HOA that does that is the HOA is not the government. The HOA is a private entity, which theoretically is run by the members, and one of the members would be complaining about the HOA is doing to itself, in essence. But it's considered a contractual situation between private individuals, and so a court will enforce it. But I get your point. So there you go. Steve, Winston-Salem, it's a city and a cigarette brand. And Big John apparently steps in once a week to say, Drew and Mike forever. Keelan, I've never smoked, but if I ever decided to take it up, I'll start with a patch. What happens if you rolled the patches up and smoked those? Zach, I remember going to the reservation in Barrowguts, way up north. My grandparents had a property in Pelkey, Pelkie. Pelkey is a neat little town. There's not a whole lot there anymore. I believe there's a post office and a little general store kind of place. There used to be more there, but not anymore. It's pretty much becoming a ghost town. And Pelkey's, I'm guessing, 10, 15 miles inland from the Keweenaw Bay. Really, really cool little town. I've driven through it as recently as last year, I believe. And there's a lot of forested, wooded properties up there. And there's deer everywhere. If you want to hunt, that's where you go. Johnny Knoxville of Winston-Salem, home of the Winston Cup Museum. Offensively Normal says nicotine was also used as an insecticide at one time. What I thought was funny is when the first Englishmen returned to England from visiting North America, they brought back tobacco. And they said, we found the coolest thing. The natives there take this plant, dry it out, roll it up, and they let it in fire and they smoke it. And people are like, why would they do that? Until you apparently tried it, you don't understand it. And I believe it was King James, I could be wrong about the king, referred to it as that foul weed, F-O-U-L, next word weed, that foul weed. Oh, Johnny Knoxville says I was referring to non-HOA property, but we got our wires. No, I got that. And I apologize. But my point was that I had a lot of people commenting on the video I did earlier this week about that, going, that's unconstitutional. Like, just go to court and you'll win. No, you're going to go to court and you're going to lose. And you might get in trouble for filing a frivolous lawsuit. But if the city, state, county, or the government of any sort were to ban it, they'd probably lose, unless, of course, they just said it's illegal to smoke anywhere. We outlaw all cigarettes, but that's not going to happen. So, Pontiac 411 says, I never connected Winston Cup with cigarettes. Well, that's interesting because they had so saturated that market with the word that it became synonymous with NASCAR more so than cigarettes. And I mean, before NASCAR and Winston got together, there were a few oddball sponsors like Falstaff Beer. And I got pictures of Bobby Isaac holding the trophy for winning the national championship in 1970. And as a reference to Falstaff in the picture, because I believe Falstaff was the big sponsor that year. So, Johnny Knoxville, I keep telling Steve there's a soup bird in there. At the Winston Cup Museum, I've been there. But the cars move in and out. I know I've seen, I think that's one where they used to have a Dodge Daytona. It was number 6, and they passed it off as Buddy Baker's, and it wasn't. But hey, what are you going to do? Dan Boyd, I've never gotten to drink a Falstaff. Are they still around? Johnny Knoxville, there was a Superbird in there, but I've not stopped in yet. Yeah, I've also been to the Museum of Speed in Talladega at the racetrack there. And I've been to wherever the NASCAR museum is. I've been to a bunch of those museums, but the cars do get moved around a little bit. Oh yeah, Johnny Knoxville says the NASCAR museum is in Charlotte. That's the one I'm thinking of right there. So yeah, Virginia Slims sponsored women's professional tennis back, and I remember that Virginia Slims tennis. Steve pointed it out. So Jay Klein says stopped at a restaurant in Iowa in 2015. They had signs telling you to smoke in your car, not outside. That's interesting. I've never seen that before, but I can see them wanting people to stay away from the building, for instance. But people got to stop at rest areas, do all kinds of stuff. So there you go. James Scott says he's never heard of Falstaff beer. Finally, something too old for me to know about. Let's start throwing things at James to see how old he is, and see if we can figure it out. Brian Wilson, by the way, a friend of mine from high school is named Brian Wilson, and of course, the songwriter and one of the musicians in the Beach Boys is named Brian Wilson. What's your favorite legal drama movie? I've mentioned this before. It's Anatomy of a Murder. It's an older movie based on a film of the based on a book of the same name, written by a guy from Michigan. It's very, very good. Pod races. Richard Petty promised his mom that he would never have an alcohol brand as a sponsor. Wouldn't surprise me. I've met Richard Petty, and it's an amazing family. The Pettys are known primarily because Richard was so successful. Richard won 200 races, including one year he won 10 in a row. Some things will never be done again. He won 10 races in a row one year. And but it was his father, Lee Petty, who actually realized that they could make a living racing in NASCAR. And the Pettys were racing in NASCAR since day one, and they made it a business. It was a family business, but a business nonetheless. There were races that Richard and Lee were both in where they raced. There was one race where Lee came in second, and he narked out Richard because Richard had done something that was apparently incorrect, i.e., cheating. And they disqualified Richard, and Lee won. And people are going, but dude, you would have made more money if you were 1 and 2. And he's like, no, we're racing. But point is, it was still a business. And I've been to Level Cross, and I've been to the Petty Museum and shop, and I met him, and very, very nice guy. In fact, on my set, on the shelf right back here, up against the wall, there's a belt buckle, and it's a Richard Petty belt buckle that I bought from them. It's a commemorative of some sort. So James Scott says I'm 52, which means that we could probably name some stuff that you wouldn't remember. But I wouldn't have much time on you. I'd have a little bit, but not a whole lot. So no, checking in from Daytona. And Cyberdox is 43. And of course, that was Richard's number. For a while, they also used 42 and 44 for other members of the team. And at one point in time, Richard's brother also raced, Maurice, and then Maurice actually transitioned over and became an engine builder slash a crew chief kind of guy. So he was very, very important also. Janie Seagrass, I met Richard in '88 in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, he's just a really, really nice guy. He's just a really nice guy. Johnny Knoxville says the number 3 should have been permanently retired. I'm a little surprised they didn't. Although there's only so many numbers up to 99. I don't know. I've seen some baseball teams have retired so many jerseys. You're like, they're going to run out of numbers, guys. Start using letters or something. Gilbert says I got a bunch of Kyle Petty memorabilia, even some 24th scales. Josh Farrow, he drove a Cyclone, right? There was a year that Richard Petty drove for Ford but I believe it was a Torino. Um, Hammond Egger, I remember candy cigarettes. I remember those too. There was such an obvious ploy to get kids to start smoking. Oh boy. Mrs. Teresa, 1999 says, my former husband's family is distantly related to Richard Petty. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. If you ever get the chance, if you're in North Carolina, you're near a town called Level Cross, go look him up, swing by his place. You can check out a museum. You pay a couple extra bucks, take a tour of the shop, and as they're showing you around, you might bump into Richard Petty. He might just be there, just walking around. He lives there, you know. Josh Farrow, I missed you earlier, and I apologize. Are you versed in constitutional law? I was wondering if a president can remove an agency that was enacted by Congress without their support. That is a good constitutional law question. I generally don't discuss politics on this channel on the weekends in particular. However, I can tell you the Constitution has three primary articles that come into play here. Article 1 is Congress, Article 2 is the president, Article 3 is the judiciary. Each of them have described roles as to what they can and cannot do. And so there are some things that can only be done by Congress. There's some things that can only be done by the Supreme Court and so on. And so I'm not sure if you're talking about a hypothetical or an actual situation, but generally speaking, if it was created by an act of Congress and signed by a president, chances are there's a law that protects it, which means it would have to be undone the same way it was created. But I'm not going to go there today because it's a hypothetical. And as of right now, you could be referring to a whole lot of different things, unfortunately, to make it that simple to figure out. So Rick R says, thank you for your informative and entertaining videos. Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that as well. Johnny Knoxville, bubblegum cigars. Remember those too. They weren't quite the same, but oh, DePaul, the candy cigarettes had a little red tip to make it look like it was glowing. Michael Thacker, are you writing any new books? I just wrote an update to my Turban Car book, which I turned into my publisher. It'll be coming out later this year. I'll do updates. But the Turban Car book originally came out in like 2010. And in the last couple of years, been a lot of activity in the field because Jay Leno's engine blew up. And then they got it fixed. They got the car back on the road. So I wrote a whole update on that, explaining that process. Absolutely fascinating how they did it. And I had a front row seat to the whole thing because my brother was in charge of the program of getting the car back on the road. And so I actually got to get very, very in depth in explaining how these guys did it. And so it's going to be kind of technical. I'm not sure if it's going to be as enjoyable for people who aren't into cars as the book may have been originally. But I think a lot of people who have heard the story about his engine blowing up, Jay's, might want to hear in detail what they had to do to get it running again. And some of the stuff they did is just mind-blowing. But you can do mind-blowing stuff today with the equipment they've got out there. So the thing I'm working on right now is that. I've got a couple other backup things I'm working on also, but very, very long-term, but no other contracts to write any books at this moment in time. Larissa says, when someone asks you a legal question, can you give them legal advice without being their lawyer? Do you become their lawyer when you give legal advice? No, but I also avoid giving legal advice for the reason is that it can confuse people. So keep in mind that I'm in Michigan. I'm licensed only in Michigan. If somebody from another state asks me a question about laws in other states, I literally can't help them anyways with legal advice. I can give you some basic ideas or tell you where to look or who to call maybe, but you become somebody's lawyer generally when they've signed a retainer with you and they've retained you. Now, you can hire somebody on a handshake, and I've probably told this story before, was walking through 36th District Court in Detroit a few years back, and a woman came up to me and she said, are you an attorney? And I said, yes. She goes, my son got in trouble, maybe a grandson, but a younger person related to her. And she was crying. She was crying. And she goes, and he's here right now, does not have an attorney. I think he should have an attorney. And I said, where is he? And so called him over, talked to him for a few minutes. And he said, yeah, I'd be happy to have an attorney, but Can't afford you. I said, well, tell you what, I go, number one, they'll appoint an attorney for you. I said, but quite frankly, I said, what you need right now is not so complicated. I'll handle it for you. And then the grandmother said to me, she goes, well, I'll pay you on his behalf. And I said to the boy, I said, if it's okay with you, she'll pay me and when we're good. And he goes, okay. So I represented this kid and I helped him. And I was going to not even ask for any money. I was going to just walk out of there. And then later, there was another hearing after that I took care of. But before I left, the woman said, well, thank you so much. And she reached over with the old thumb on some money trick and shook my hand and handed me cash. And I felt it there, and I shook her hand, and I took it and stuck it in my pocket. And it wasn't a lot of money, but that would have counted because I said, I'll represent you. There was an agreement, even an agreement on how I get paid. The real question is, if she didn't tell me she was going to pay me in front of him, I'd have to disclose to him and say, just so you know, someone else is paying for your representation. There's some rules on that. But generally speaking, no, I do not become your attorney if you simply ask me a question, I give you an answer. So I'm not your attorney right now. But most of the time, if you contact, for instance, the state bar or whoever it is that regulates attorneys in your state to complain about an attorney, the first thing to do is say, are they your attorney or are they someone else's attorney? And if you say they're my attorney, they say, did you sign a retainer? Because a lot of people think somebody's their attorney who's not. Johnny Knoxville just threw out the name Zagnut. Now, we've talked about this before. Zagnut is not a candy that you hand out on Halloween if you want the children to like you. Okay? So, Kellicott, have you ever known anyone who got a governor's pardon? I'm not even sure that I can think of anybody who's gotten one at all. Governor's pardons are much rarer. It's been a while. I can't even think of any. I had to go look it up. Henry Nissen says, I know of a Jeep with 300,000 miles the owner won't sell because it's so rusted. He's afraid of liability. Well, if he sells it used as is in most states, there's no liability, except, of course, if someone comes back after you and they're angry. Liability might not be your number one concern. But, hey, I forgot to drink some Gatorade. I actually went out and bought assorted cups. I realized I've been using the same color every single day. Hang on a second. So today's purple. Next week will not be purple. Unless I screw up, which is always a possibility. Pontiac 411, can you write a book entitled How to Write a Book? There are hundreds of books on that topic. I kid you not. Mark Miller says, Gatorade? Question mark? Yes. It's either that or water. Michael Thacker, what do you think a modern turbine car would look like? Your best bet today would be to do a hybrid, go turbine electric, and just get a turbine engine that spins a generator that creates the electricity, and then put the power to the wheels through motors. But they've done that. Companies have done that, and it's doable. It's quite complicated and fairly expensive because recharging just plug-in seems to be a lot easier to make. So, Johnny Knoxville, I like circus peanuts. You mean those orange things? I see those all the time, and I'm like, I don't know. I pity the fools. If you sold an old rusted vehicle, like out in a field, would you have to have a title? Generally speaking, it's good to have a title for a car. If you don't have a title, there's ways you can get a title, but a lot of older vehicles also don't have real good VINs. I did a video a couple of years ago about a guy who had some old car, the teens or 20s, and he's having a hard time getting it titled because he didn't have a title for all the parts he put together and something like that. Gordon 861, didn't Jaguar look at a jet car about 20 years ago? I believe Jaguar did build a hybrid turbine electric. I think they did. Zach says he met somebody who liked black licorice. the other day and was genuinely confused or legitimately. Um, Black licorice is something I don't get it either. Red, oh my gosh, red licorice all day long. That's the kind of thing I eat too much of when I have the opportunity. Johnny Knoxville, remember the beef jerky that came packaged like Skull? Does not ring a bell. All I know is Skull and there's other tobaccos where you chew on it, chewing tobacco. And for some odd reason, it's really big in baseball. You'll see like high school baseball players chewing tobacco. It's like, well, the big leaguers do it. Oh, Daniel Kessler says, I thought your second choice of drinks would be Diet Coke. Not where I'm talking a lot. I want something a little smoother. So, yeah, don't forget the big league chew, shredded bubble gum. That's bad. That's bad. Johnny Knoxville's got a model railroad, which is a Union Pacific line. What you got to do is get him to go around and smash into each other like the Addams family. Sig226 claims he likes black licorice. Nate Fish likes the pronunciation jaguar, as opposed to jaguar. It's interesting. Even jaguar has alternated on that in America, and I know that many people do say jaguar, but you'll also hear people say jaguar. Exiled Mind 76. I paid $200 for my first car, 1967 Ford Galaxy XLT. My first car was a 1969 Dodge Charger, bought in 1979 for $300, but that was a long time ago. To Paul 31 in New York State, cars older than 1972 don't need titles. So what happens? I mean, when you go to register, what do you do? Do you just show them a piece of paper? What do you do? I mean, or can you apply for a title? I don't understand how that works. Gilbert, the gum that tastes like licorice called Beeman's. I remember that. In fact, I've seen that recently. There's a store near my house that sells that up near the counter. I'm not quite sure why. Jay Klein, my wife is Danish and loves black licorice. There's also something about Finns liking black licorice also, but it didn't take with me. '69 Coronet 500, $1,600 for mine 41 years ago, 1984. That's a lot of money back then, my friend. Mr. Mamor, black jelly beans. Same thing. I'll pick those out. I might eat them last, but I pick them out. C6H1206. I like Swedish fish. The little candies. Yeah. Robert Dillon, I'm flashing back to my Aunt Mary explaining the proper pronunciation of Porsche. I occasionally get grief for saying aunt as opposed to aunt. My Aunt Mary. But in the Midwest, we say aunt. Sorry. DePaul 31 says they use a registration document to transfer ownership. But what if you pulled something out of a field that's older than 72? You have no title, no registration. Then what do you do? Cyberdoc, anybody ever chew the ends off the licorice and use it as a straw? Yes. Ram 50 V8. By the way, Ram, I sent you a book went out today. Candy corn. I love those. Blah, blah, blah. Even Ronald Reagan wouldn't eat black jelly beans. And wasn't it one of the Bushes who famously said he didn't like eating broccoli? And people got all up in arms. It's like, come on. Find something important to talk about. Yeah, Larissa doesn't. Don't the Finns have a salt licorice that are made in little triangles? I believe they do. William, I paid $400 for a 1976 Chevy Monza 4-cylinder Iron Duke in 1988. I had a Chevy Monza. I believe it was a model year 80, 82 or 83. It had the Iron Duke in it. And the funny part was that it may have been earlier than that. And people are like, "Oh, that engine's horrible." Mine was fine, so I can only speak to what I, experienced myself. Daniel Kester says it was Senior Bush who didn't like broccoli. Okay, okay. Duncan Campbell. That was Bush 1. I love it when the Australians know our history better than we do. And by we, I mean me. Tim Buck 2 says Reagan classified ketchup as a vegetable. Yeah, there was a whole debate about that, without getting into politics, but that was an interesting moment in our history a while back. Robert Dillon says the secret to candy corn is you got to get it when it's fresh. Best time to get it is in July when they start putting it on the shelf. Is it seasonal? Is it? Oh boy. Sig 226. My first car was an '84 Buick Regal. I got it free. It was a hand me down. I pity the fool. Do you have any good Finnish jokes? Not really. No. we we're not a humorous people. Oh. Henry Nissen says, I'll confirm as a Finn that black licorice does get eaten, but only after all the other options have been exhausted. Oh, S. Thompson asks, is a hot dog a sandwich? That, of course, is a big debate. And people might go, that's just a joke, right? No, it could actually be an important thing. Suppose you opened up a restaurant that sold sandwiches. Okay. And you sign a lease with your landlord and you're in a strip mall. And you say, I don't want any restaurants going in so I can sell sandwiches. And they go, look, you just sell sandwiches. You go, fine. You can put in other restaurants, but they can't sell sandwiches. So they can sell soup, anything, but they just can't. So someone moves in next door and they start selling hot dogs. I'd be ticked if I was a sandwich guy, so. Mr. Red Taco 11, afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all having a good day. Nate Fish, red vines do indeed rule. Yeah, I like the red vines. They got those at the movie theater. There's other brands I like also, but the red vines are good. Drew Edmonds, I almost forgot my 67 Chevy had a manual choke. Kids still never know. Interestingly, I've got chokes on a bunch of my devices. I got an ATV with a manual choke. I got to use it in cold weather. My snowblower's got a manual choke. Trying to think what else does. I know I've got a couple other. I think I've got a water pump that has just a standalone water pump. But my 69 Dodge Charger came with a 2-barrel, and I swapped it out for a 4-barrel. And the choke setting thing no longer works. So I put a manual choke. So I actually had a manual choke in that car, which I knew about. But if somebody was to borrow my car, they might not know it was there because it was tucked underneath the dashboard. Ram 50 V8. LOL. Boomer, red vines taste like processed plastic. Yes, that's what licorice is. Bob Loblos is Bart Simpson as a father with a choke. Oh boy. Robert Dillon, speaking of candy, does anybody remember Chuckles? They actually made a cameo in Seinfeld. I remember the Jujubes, and I remember the Thin Mints or the mint candies because when the surgery, I don't remember Chuckles. Oh, 182Q KFTW choke on primers on my chainsaws, trimmers, etc. Choke and primers. Yeah, I've got a bunch of equipment. Some of it has choke, some of it doesn't. Trying to start a small chainsaw 2-stroke that's been sitting for a while can become quite an exercise for your right arm. Johnny Knoxville says Twizzlers aren't chewy enough. Yeah, I don't like Twizzlers as much, but I like the ones. There's a bunch of different brands. I think they're all made by the same company, but like the Amish Farms licorice and stuff. You find it at like flea markets and gas stations and stuff. That stuff's good. Bob Blah Blah says Chuckles are little square, multicolored gummies with sugar on top. Does not ring a bell. Padres Skittles for the win. Gilbert Chiclets. Chiclets were just kind of like they're too small, especially for little kids. I used to chew a lot of gum. Okay, how about Big Wad? Remember Big Wad? It's a block of gum like the size of a deck of playing cards. Somebody better remember that. Jack says, I just moved to Troy near Big Beaver and Crooks. Heard you saying you're not too far away, maybe Birmingham. I can't remember. I grew up in Birmingham and near Troy and Big Beaver and all that. You're talking about the Somerset Mall area. There's a car show every year that takes place at a big parking lot office tower there. That'll be, I think, in July. Troy Traffic Jam. I always go to that. But I hang out down there all the time. In fact, I was in that area I drove through there on Wednesday, I think. But yeah. Dave Beddoes, Monty Python. Just a wafer thin mint. It's just a little mint. Oh boy. Harry Selden says Big Wad was gum made to look like chewing tobacco. Not the stuff I'm thinking of. It came in a block. It came in a big block. But Johnny Knoxville, Bubblicious. Do you remember when all those soft gums came out for the first time, like Bubble Yum? And of course, there's all the rumors about where it came from. But yeah, David Peterson, Bubble Yum. Briefly, it was sold in stick form. They realized they could actually sell it in a different form and market it better. John Zablak, Bazooka Bubblegum. Oh my God. Bazooka is it's like stale when it's brand new. And it has a little cartoon in there. And then do you remember you used to be able to buy things like little toys and stuff with the very strange. Very strange. Mrs. Teresa, 1999, says a few weeks ago you mentioned about Subaru Bratz. I used to have one with my former husband in the late 80s. Pretty cool. That was the vehicle that was designed to look like a car that had been turned into a pickup truck, like a small El Camino. But they put two seats in the back facing backwards, and that qualified it to be a four-person vehicle, and it didn't get taxed the same as if it had been sold without those seats. And it was like a weird thing because you'd see these cars and no one was ever sitting in the seats. So, hey, Canadian Robot Lady is in the house. Good afternoon, present and accounted for, and I hope you're feeling better, my friend. Blah, blah, blah. The antics of Bazooka Joe. All I remember is the one joke where the one guy is talking to the other guy, and he goes, I had the craziest dream last night. I dreamt I ate this gigantic marshmallow, and I woke up and my pillow was gone. It's only funny because it's stupid enough to be funny. Doug Jones says the worst gum ever is that which came in baseball cards. You might be right on that. Now, I didn't do a lot of the baseball or football cards when I was growing up. I had friends who did, and a couple occasions, I'd be with them and here, have a piece of gum. And it's like they thought to themselves, well, we've got to pay the players to be involved in this. We got to print the cards. We got to package the cards. And let's throw in a stick of gum. And the stick of gum is such an afterthought. It's like they go to a gum factory and go, just scrape the stuff off the ground and make it into sticks and ship it to us by the ton, and we'll just get rid of it. Because it is not good gum. I'll admit, I haven't chewed gum in a long time, but when I was younger, I'd chewed a lot of gum. Ram 50 V8, remember S&H green stamps? We had a ton of them. We returned. I was too young to use them myself. But I know my mother went through a phase where she was using them. And everywhere you went, you want the stamps, you want the stamps, you want the stamps. D. Wood got a 68 Chrysler convertible from Beecham's Auto Salvage in Drayton Plains, not far from Waterford. Had a lot of good times in it. Mrs. Teresa says she actually did get to ride in the back, but people didn't often ride back there, right? Johnny Knoxville, Mellow Cups. Okay, are we just like looking up oddball candies? Oh boy, Timbuktu Tootsie Rolls. Gilbert says my grocery store is doing green stamps last year. Still? Is that still a thing? Wow. Wacky packs, Cyberdoc, better homes and garbage. Forgot about those. Oh boy. The Zero Bar. Lewis Browning. Yeah, blah blah blah. I thought Dentine was small, and they came out with chiclets. Yeah, Dentine, same thing. Little tiny piece. You got to do like 6 of them. So Ben Leisha had a '63 Rambler Classic station wagon with Nash seats. How'd you recognize the Nash seats? It's very, very specialized knowledge. My father would spot things like that, but you know, Mike Torello, the Reggie Bar, Gilbert Moon Pies. Henry Nissen says the flavor in American gum lasts a lot longer than in Finnish gum. Really? I would not have guessed that. Rodney Perry sweet tarts. And what was it? Razzles, the things that you chew them and they became gum. And the question was, is it a gum or is it a candy? Real controversy. Tim Nossum, is the sticker in the door jam a legal VIN? I see a lot of people opening the door to verify while they look for plain view evidence. On most modern cars, there's a VIN probably in like 8 different places. One is the base of the A pillar on the dashboard. One is on the sticker to the door, and is often them stamped elsewhere in the car. But the question is, can they ask you to open the door, and can they order you to open the door to look at that if they can just look through the glass and see it there? But I hate to even talk about things because it's going to depend wildly on what state you're in, probably. Doug Jones, my cousin Vinny, just came on TV while watching a YouTube lure. Yeah, I actually saw my cousin Vinny is on one of the cable channels. I saw it last night that it was there. I didn't watch it again, but it was there. I just watched Goodfellas, where he plays a very different kind of character than my cousin Vinny. Oh God. Zagnuts. Sub GR77 is trying to start a fight. Exiled Mind 76 is a peanut brittle candy. It's freaking evil. I broke a tooth on it when I was in my mid-teen years. Never touched that stuff again since. But it's good though. It's good. But I'm with you because you're never sure how brittle it is or how hard it's going to be. Johnny Z. Bradley says Juju Mint and Kramer watching operation. Well, I think it's the Junior Mint and then Juju Bees, which are the thing that Elaine picked up when she was getting ready to go to the hospital, and she picked those up on her way and offended her boyfriend. Um, NZ Kiwi NZ says in New Zealand they sold chocolate covered licorice, which looked like animal droppings. I bet it tasted good though, right? Oh boy. Oh, Milk Duds. Somebody's mentioned Milk Duds. I like Milk Duds a lot. Exiled Mind 76 says, "Do you get into online gaming?" No, I don't. I do watch videos though. I forgot what game they're playing, but it's the one that simulates where you can get like airplanes, for instance, and you can actually refight things and it's multiplayers. And these guys will go like, could a squad of A-10 warthogs have prevented Pearl Harbor? They'll do like a 45-minute thing where they'll simulate that, and that's a lot of fun. But like I said, I don't know what game they're playing. I watched a couple of those last week. Johnny Knoxville Twix, and Twix is one of those things where their advertising I find lacking. But I mean they're good. But Gilbert Sugar Babies, yeah, those are good. They're a little. It's a lesser, like a second tier maybe. Johnny Knoxville says purple violets were better than Neckos. Are Neckos the little hard round candies? Sometimes I list myself Pop Rocks. Remember Zots? Zots? I was at a store. Where was I? I was at a store. Hang on, hang on. I'm having a mental blank here. Oh, where was I? I went into a candy store, a store that sold nothing but candy. They had tons of candy. And they had Zots there, and I bought Zots. It was a hard candy, came in a little plastic thing, but if you bit into it, it fizzed. Very, very good. I like Zots. They still exist too. But they're I believe on some level related to Pop Rocks. Robert Dillon says the commissary in the Panama Canal Zone had a very limited candy selection, so coming to the States was like going to Willy Wonka's factory. William Jurowski reminds us of Freshen Up Gum. It had that gel-like center, and we had a very, very rude nickname for it, which I can't say out loud, but I do remember that as well. Do they still make that? I bet they do. Hot tamales. I know somebody who I know somebody who went out and drank a bunch of alcohol when he was not old enough to drink, and then got worried and thought, what if I get sick from having had all this beer and I hadn't eaten anything? And so all he had was hot tamales, the candy, and ate a couple boxes of those, and then got really sick. He's describing the story now as an adult, like looking back on it, it's hilarious now, but it wasn't hilarious then. He's like, I can't even look at hot tamales. He's like, I avoid the candy section. I can't even look in that direction. Ram 50 V8. I think Necco wafers are made from the chalk dust from chalkboard erasers. Yeah, they seem rather industrial on some level. Johnny Knoxville, Mike and Ike. Mike and Ike. There's like candy companies out there. Like, we need new candy. Let's come up with something. Well, let's try two flavors. What do we call it? Mike and Ike. Okay. Red Hots, L. Grant Nelson. Yeah, if you hold them in your hand too long, you turn your hands red. You know. Johnny Knoxville, grape Sour Patch Kids. I'll admit, I've never had a Sour Patch Kid candy before. Never have. Good and Plenty, and there's Good and Fruity. Feral Kitty reminds us of Good and Plenty, but those also had that the licorice in them, where you like if you're eating those with something else, it would kind of ruin your flavor palette. There's fudge in Mackinac Island. If you ever go to the island, fudge shops out there that are making it there, and you can eat it like as soon as it cools. And some of that stuff's good too. But you get a block of fudge this big, and you get about halfway through it, and you are so sugared up that you aren't going to come down for like a week. So Johnny Knoxville bottle caps. Yeah, I remember those too. It's like, hey, let's what's small and kids can fit in their mouth? A bottle cap. Okay, let's make candy called bottle caps. Okay. Kelikaku. I still remember the Good and Plenty theme song with Choo Choo Charlie. Can you imagine? That's television advertising, right? Oh boy. Steve, I ate Mentos and drank Coke as a kid. Thank goodness, not at the same time. Yeah, then you'd wind up offing yourself like the kid who did the Pop Rocks, right? Oh, Smarties. Josh Jogmina, Smarties. I like Smarties too. And also Runts. It's a lot like that. It's very, very it's like pure sugar. But man, yeah, you can get buzzed up real fast. Like if I'm walking out of a store and they've got one of those candy machines you put a quarter in and get candy out of, I'll stop if it's got Runts. I don't care. I'll go break bills to get quarters to buy the Runts. I love the Runts. Gilbert Stuckey's Divinity. I'm more curious about Stuckey's. Remember those? There's a former Stuckey's on I-75 up near Waters, Michigan. But are there any Stuckey's left? Because there were these restaurant slash convenience stores along major highways called Stuckey's back in the day. But we haven't had them for a long time. But the buildings are so distinctive, you'll still spot them. So Johnny Knoxville says, my buddy in Portland just texted me that Costco has full service gas islands, but you can pump your own gas there as well. So it's going to be one of those things where maybe some people who just don't want to pump their own gas. And so there always are going to be a few places that offer the service. Kilium, the banana runts are the best. They're very good. They're very good. Padre, how often do you hear a lawyer go on a 20-minute tangent about Canada? About candy. We could go longer, but we haven't got that kind of time. Oh, Josh Homan, Smarties are good. I have a cooling effect in your mouth. When we were younger, they came from Canada. Robert Dillon, Stuckey's made excellent chocolate shakes. Can somebody look up what happened to Stuckey's? Is it still exist or are they gone? I'm very curious. Pixie Sticks. Oh my. Is it Madame Melestrange or is it Dr. Me Lestrange? I don't know. I ask every week too, and I apologize. Pixie Sticks, it's a straw filled with sugar and a little bit of flavoring. And you just take them and dump them in your mouth. And we used to joke about it. It's like how lazy can you get as a candy manufacturer that all you do is just put the ingredients in something and have the kids dump it in their mouths. Bill McMahon, I just saw Stuckey's in Georgia or Missouri. So they might still be out there. It's got to be one of those things where you have to have it near a freeway that gets enough traffic to make it work, right? Someone else wrote Stuckey's is gone. Mr. Red Taco 11. Yeah, sugar in a straw. Pixie Sticks. Dylan Geyser, is there a 5-year statute of limitations? I mean, in general? The longest statutes of limitation we're going to hear are usually 6 years for contract actions in some states, but 1, 2, 3 years are more common. 4 years on UCC warranty claims. 5 years, I'm not sure about a 5-year statute of limitations, but I'm not sure. But you can look it up in your state if you know what crime you're talking about or what civil action you're talking about. You can look it up, and of course, in most states, murder has no statute of limitations in most cases. Oh, don't snort the pixie sticks, says Ryan Holtzinger, which is probably the best advice you're going to hear today on this channel. Apparently, Paul Harris says you can find the pecan logs that you used to get at Stuckey's at Pilot truck stops. And that's the cool thing when you hear about a product that did so well that it survived the company going out. Exiled Mind 76 says I tried pixie sticks when I was a kid, but every time I was dumping the powder in my mouth, a brother would hit my arm and cause me to dump it all over my face. Oh boy. Dylan Geyser, hypothetically, could I drive through the state if I had a fleeing and eluding? Have you been charged with a fleeing and eluding, or is the fleeing and eluding an uncharged crime? Because if it's been charged, the rules of that might change also. But again, I don't know what state you're in, but it can get complicated. Michael M says you can buy 1 pound packages of just the banana runts. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite candy. You said, Steve, you got to name a favorite candy. I love the milk chocolate covered cherries. The dried cherries. They're like raisins, but cherries. And you can buy them from a place called Cherry Republic, but there's also places you can get them elsewhere. And when I lived in Eau Claire, there was a place in town that sold them once a year. They get a big batch of these things in chocolate covered cherries. They were so good. They're so good. And I go in a week later and they're like, we're sold out. I'm like, order some more. And they go, no, we don't. We get one load every year and that's it. So I go home, open up the box, find the name, and I contact the company. They go, how many you want? And I'm like, what's a case? They go, 20 pounds. I ordered a case and I did that more than once. And they keep. So you can just put them in your, they don't keep as long as you'd think, but chocolate covered cherries. And I used to buy them in industrial quantities. It's been a while. I should try that again. Unbelievable. Robert Dillon says, I can't believe there's a Stuckey's left. I watched a documentary on them a little while back. L. Grant Nelson, Queen Anne's chocolate covered cherries. There you go. Ryan Holtzinger, Pez had the best idea to sell candy, but the candy itself wasn't that good. War Eagle, we talked about candy cigarettes above. That's actually what got us started here. Southern Torrance says, I live in Southern America, and I have yet to set foot into a Buc-ee's. I've never been in one either, but I live in Michigan, so. Yaz Calibri says, for instance, I know someone who's divorced and her husband has never been served, and the case has gone on for 5 years plus. That's a different thing. The statute of limitations is how long after you do something can you be charged with a crime for it. And the divorce action is civil. And so the question is, did a court grant a divorce despite the fact that the other side wasn't served? Because if you file a lawsuit for any purpose, if you don't or you can't serve somebody, the court will make you take steps to try to serve them or explain why they can't be served. But Grande Tacos says, I'm 18 miles from the nearest Buc-ee's, bought the magnet. I've had several people send me Buc-ee's shirts. I've got 2 or 3 that I wear in rotation once in a while. Um, Dave Beddoes, Sears had solid chocolate Easter bunnies on half price. I ended up handing them out on Halloween. That's when people realize that the candy might not be fresh, right? Oh, William, Ring Pops. Again, I saw them. I never actually had one, but I saw them. Yeah, Kelikaku's talking about the fact that Howard Johnson's had free coffee refills by the pot. And I suspect that the overhead cost for the coffee is so low. I mean, a lot of places give you free refills of coffee. But John Bonchi, hi, Steve. I need a probate attorney in the state of Florida. Any recommendations? No, but there'll be a lot of them down there. Trust me. I got a couple of friends who are attorneys in Florida, but none of them do probate. Anthony Ostwald, hi from Texas. Me and Katie. Thank you for checking in, my friend. MHOH says the best buy date is still 2 years out. Best buy. Oh. Johnny Knoxville says he found mac and cheese candy canes on Google. I think at this point the AI Google is hallucinating. Oh boy. KJ, I'm back. What topics have I missed? Probably nothing. Drew Edmonds, any stories of people intentionally evading service? I did a video about serving people. I've gone out and served people myself just for a little while. I went through a phase where I found it funny. Often gets me in trouble. It seemed that'd be funny, a funny thing to go out and serve people. And I had one guy, I served him, I started walking away, and he came running over and he goes, "Here," and he's trying to give him back to me. And I'm like, I don't want him either. And so then he takes him and sticks him in my pocket. As he walks away, I pick him up and just toss him like this, and I walk away because I served him. You can't unserve yourself. And I filed the proof of service with the court. And a couple of days later, I get a call from an attorney. He goes, "It's kind of embarrassing, but did you have my client served recently?" And I go, and I named the guy. And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah, that was me personally." And he goes, "Oh, then you know what happened?" I said, "Yeah, I served him. He tried to unserve himself, and his papers wound up all over the parking lot." He goes, "Well, after you left, he thought better of it. All he could find was the face sheet with your phone number." And he goes, "Can you send me another copy of that?" Oh boy. Uh, John Zablak, where can I get a kosher cheeseburger? Oh boy. Drew Edmonds. Ha ha. I picture that being in the voice of Nelson from Simpsons. Ha ha. More of a ha ha. Cyberdoc, no one mentioned Werther's Originals. And then Cyberdoc, Werther's Original Candy. Canadian Robot Lady, Johnny Knoxville, can you guys get old Dutch potato chips south of the border? I'm not sure about that. There was a company in Waterford, Michigan called Downey's that made the greatest potato chips. And they used to sell them at Kroger, and they stopped selling them. And I'm like, they were so good. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. I hate when that happens. Victor Swenson, thank you for being yourself. Can you imagine if I tried to be somebody else and I did it badly? This is not that hard to do. Bob Kerflugen, I love chocolate covered potato chips. I've never had them. I know they'll chocolate cover almost anything, and they'll also deep fry almost anything. So, by the way, I went to a junk meet, a flea market. I don't even call it huge outdoor thing with tables and booths and all this stuff. And they had the place at the end of one aisle selling elephant ears, and I'd never had one before. I'm not even sure what they are. To this day, I don't know what they are. And I'm like, I'm really hungry, and I'm looking around. I don't see anything else, so I'm like, I'll take one of those. And I watched the guy make it, give it to me, and I ate it. And about 10 minutes later, I'm going, what was that? Like, And it cost a lot more than it should have. I'm assuming it was edible. I'm still here. D. Corbett, can you be served by a mailman? In a roundabout way, yes. Um, I can serve you via certified mail, green card, return receipt requested, limited delivery if you sign for it. But if you don't sign for it or if it's not done properly, it wouldn't count. So generally speaking, simply answering your mail or checking your mail would not get you served. But if somebody ever shows up and goes, "Hey, this is a green card, return receipt requested," blah 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 blah, and you need to be the person here signing for this, that could be a lawsuit. But it depends on the state you're in, and service will depend wildly by state. Chuck Luciano says elephant ears are crispy cinnamon sugar fried bread. It sounds about right. I mean, I knew it didn't include any elephant nor any ear, but nowadays you can go to county fairs and get almost anything deep fried. Deep fried candy bars and stuff. So SKS Hugo Jolly Ranchers. Nobody else mentioned that. Jolly Ranchers are good too, or watermelon candy. That's often a common flavor. They later come out with many more. David Phillips, are you asking what a flea market is? Or have you never heard of a flea market? A flea market is often a nickname for like a rummage sale. Um, you're walking through and there's all these tables with stuff out, like garage sales, but not at somebody's garage. Oh, CAW, how's it going, white boy? Wait, I'm white? When did this happen? Hang on. Oh my gosh. Johnny, how come you never told me I'm white? I thought you were my friend. This entire time I've been doing videos and live streams, and I never knew or realized that I'm white. Oh, okay. Now I'm a handsome white boy. Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Oh boy. Ram 50 V8 dialing for dollars. Remember bowling for dollars? I don't know how regional that was, but bowling for dollars was literally exactly what you think it is. Oh, Pontiac 411, not a market to buy fleece. The clothing there might have fleece. I don't know. Johnny Knoxville, good point. Kelikakis is in Germany. It's commonly referred to as a Flohmarkt, which translates to flea market. Okay. Grande Tacos says, since you're a DJ, you could play that funky music, white boy. William, do you remember calling on the old telephone to get the time of day? Absolutely. What was the phone number? I'm trying to remember what it was where I lived. I know the last four digits were 1212. But there's a phone number at the tone. The time will be 2:58 and 10 seconds. Beep. At the tone, the time will be 2:58 and 20 seconds. Beep. And I mean, you could listen all day. But there also was dial a joke. For a little while, the phone company was trying to be funny. And I'm not sure they're just trying to get you to use your phone or what. But anyways, yeah, I remember calling to get the time. Chris Tope, I remember going to watch Bowling for Dollars when it was shown on Channel 2 in Dayton. Oh, boy. Bob Loblas is a Far Side comic where the operator was the lady giving the time. Dave Beddoes, people used to call the radio station at which I worked to get the correct time. We only had an old battery clock in the studio. But if you ran network news at the top of the hour, there was a tone. And so when I worked at, like, say, for instance, at WTRX in Flint, we ran, I believe, NBC News at the top of the hour, and there would be a tone that I think came out 30 seconds ahead, and then either 10 or 5, or maybe 10 and 5, and there would not be a tone at the exact top, but there was a tone 5 seconds out. And so you would check the clock, 'cause there's a digital clock on the board, and you would check to see if that was synchronized or not. And I remember coming in to do my show, and the DJ before me would say, "Hey, the clock's off by 3 seconds," or whatever, and you'd work around that. So Carl's Corner. See you at the game. Oh, Harry Selden says, I think WGN Chicago still does the tone at the top of the hour. So does WJR Detroit. WJR Detroit will be right in the middle of a program. And you hear this beep, and it's just the top of the hour. And it does not matter what they're doing. It could be a baseball game, football game, a newscast, a talk show. It does not matter. And they're just the tone will jump in there. And Gilbert says, yeah, WGR in Detroit does the tone. It's the golden voice of the Great Lakes. Oh, sub GR77. I'm out. Peoples, have a good day. Victor Swenson, where's that freaking cart? Some of the carts in the studio. And Lowell Riggs I am says, don't forget about the Mars bar. It's another one of the old classics. So, and DePaul31 says WWV on shortwave will give you accurate atomic time. You can also go, for those you don't know, there's a website called time.gov, time.gov. Pull it up, and it will show you using I believe, the instrumentation of the U.S. Naval Observatory, the time in all time zones, and then it'll also tell you your computer clock is off by 0.07 seconds. So when I go to set my clocks, I'll go to time.gov. And my good friend Dave Scott, who runs My TV, often does a live broadcast from Somerset Mall every year for Mitch Albom's Radiothon. And he'll have 35 screens with all the producers and all these different people. And one screen at one end is time.gov, and they leave it up so they can keep everything perfectly on time. Cyberdoc says we are, in fact, at 3:01. We are on atomic time. And Gilbert says, in the Golden Tower of the Fisher Building. Oh, boy. Kalakaku says the FCC says that the station must identify themselves at least once an hour, and they would give the time when they did it. Station ID, but station ID did not require you to give the time. Many stations did, but the FCC's rule was you had to give the station ID call letters and the city of license next to each other. So you could say WWCK Flint, or you could say WWCK Flint, Saginaw, Bay City, Midland, whatever. As long as the WWCK call letters are next to the city of license. So some radio stations would do all kinds of crazy stuff. CK105 is WWCK FM AM Flint, and you could put the FM AM in there if you wanted to, but it was technically not correct. But WJR beat WGR Detroit. And it's the call letters and the station of license, or the city of license. And I know that one point in time, I got a lot of grief from people because I would say KIRO or KING for TV or radio stations out west. And people go, Steve, you spelled it out. Are you stupid? It's King, or it's Cairo. And I'd go, yeah, those are the call letters. No, those aren't the call letters. That's the name of the station. Are you stupid? Yeah, what you're calling the name of the station is the call letters, and it is KING or KIRO. That's just what it is. So when you hear them say, "Hey, this is Wixie Radio," WIXY are the call letters. But another story for another day. People are saying goodbye because we're checking out. It is that time. So there you go. We've been live for 2 hours and 10 minutes. So go do whatever you're going to do. Canadian Robot Lady, glad to see you back in the house and that you're healthy. Gilbert, everybody else. Daniel, have a great week. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys later. If you ordered a book from me, they'll all go out this week. If you haven't and you want to, again, email me, subject line book. I will invoice you and you'll pay it, and I'll send you the book, and that'll be how that goes. Otherwise, I will talk to you later. Bye bye.